All right. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Right on. Thank you. Okay, so this is Decriminalize. That's our website. And I want to lead by saying that Decriminalize is a movement of compassion, equity, cooperation, and justice. The natural things that emerge from these are abundance, equitable access, and community building. We are, this is the heart and ethos of our principles. So whatever we do, we seek to come from a place of compassion for our fellow brothers and sisters on this planet, as well as for our Mother Earth and the creation that gave us life. We want to, we do work, we learned a lot of what we know on how to engage and do policy work based on the wrongs that happen in the cannabis industry, particularly the rollout in Washington and California and other states, where Prop 64 went wrong. It prioritized profit and taxation over people and community. It was a top-down approach without commensurate bottom-up approach. It didn't protect or advocate for micro businesses from the get-go, and the social equity programs have not righted the wrongs of marginalizing people of color who were pushed out of cannabis as a result. We want to just offer a word of caution to policymakers that be careful with the words risk management as a tool to control equitable access. A lot of the things that we see happening in policy discussions throughout the US is that people are afraid of decriminalization of our plant entheogen, our plant allies, because of the risk of people doing themselves harm. We just want to bring attention to the fact that people have been doing plant medicines for tens of thousands of years. And most people who are on this call, if they've done plant medicines, have done it in a community setting. So the idea that it's a high risk is a fallacy. And we just want to put that right out there. And also beware of creating special class of permit holders without the underlying equitable access of decriminalized nature, because once you create special class of permit holders without decriminalization, you get people out, for of scarcity. There are three major modalities of providing services in the realm of psychedelics or plant medicines. It's community-based ceremony, clinical, and medical. Those are the three principal modalities. Of these, community-based ceremony is the most at risk because it's driven by compassion, not profit motive, or needs to control. So we just want to encourage folks to be very careful not to throw community-based ceremony by the wayside in developing policy. Also, there are two paradigms. There's a bottom-up and a top-down paradigm. We advocate the bottom-up approach, giving power to people, power to communities to determine their own ways of healing. And be careful not to throw that away as well, because marginalized communities benefit from the bottom-up model. There's two models that coexist: abundance and compassion approach, as well as a for-profit or scarcity creation approach. Obviously, we advocate abundance and compassion approach. It's a core part of our ethos. So what you're going to see in recommendations is based on that. I won't go. I'll just go through a few of these, but just to show you that our approach or entrance into the world, our paradigms deviate from the standard societal approach. In terms of our ego, we see ourselves as connected to and integrated into nature, not above or dominant over nature. In terms of living, we want to live in good relationship to nature, ecosystem, and humanity, as opposed to controlling nature or a reductionist-based model approach to living. Our healing comes from community. It's bottom up, as opposed to a highly controlled environment and detached from community. Our control is personal agency. We want to offer people personal agency to heal, as opposed to having to give that away to experts if they so choose to want to heal themselves, as opposed to having to go to a quote unquote expert to heal their own consciousness. The role of experts in our paradigm is advisory, as opposed to a full control through hierarchical systems. Our power structure is decentralized and bottom up. Consciousness for us is emergent, and most importantly, it's a human right. When you're born into this world, regardless of your place in our stratified society of wealth, you should have a right to access the highest self that you can. And right now, our society does not encourage that. And for us, entheogens are a human right, not something that should be illegal. Our coalition-based approach, we believe that can win. We recognize that we live in a society that promotes competition, extraction, and strict controls, leading to scarcity and inequitable access. Our priorities seek to reorient policies towards more just and equitable approaches. We want to prevent the mistakes we made with cannabis legalization, and we want to do that working with you all and policymakers through a coalition-minded approach where the values of DN, decrim nature that you just saw, find a home in policymaking. So our priorities are full decriminalization without limits of growing, gathering, gifting, and sharing of entheogenic plants, just like with tomatoes, lemons, and herbs. If limits are introduced, enforcement will be needed. And when you introduce enforcement, BIPOC communities pay the higher price. And we believe that it's a human right to access the gifts of nature and our ancestors. Legal protections from state and federal prosecution for those providing community-based ceremonies. So once we decriminalize, we also want to make sure we're providing legal protections for people who do community-based ceremony and who hold space like curanderos. This picture here on this slide is actually from the Wixárika community of which Susana and Angelica are with. This community has been practicing peyote-based ceremony for over 5,000 years and really are the knowledge holders and the wisdom holders of how to do plant-based medicine in their regions. These relationships are personal ones for us between the space holder and the person doing their own healing of trauma with plant medicine. We do not believe they should get into a highly regulated environment of certifications. So we would like protections for them. Creation of community serving micro businesses, enabling creation of living wage jobs, local enterprises and opportunities is also a priority for us. And it's actually in our community healing initiative. The idea there is that as we saw in the cannabis industry, when venture capital came in, it really just decimated the potential for participation amongst the BIPOC community. And we'd like to make sure that we actually create space for people of color, BIPOC communities, low-income people in communities to be able to create their own enterprises and be able to serve their own communities with micro businesses. And then finally, we also want to create public health research studies that are community driven based on assessing the results of our own community-based ceremonies. This is different, say, than a Johns Hopkins study that might look at a very artificial setting with a very controlled synthetic product or material and look at an unrealistic outcome based on a compound. What we want to do is study what's happening in our actual communities. And that's also embedded in our OCHI ordinance. This is the last slide. We believe that we get to heal ourselves. This is the center circle there is where any of us might find healing through participation in community-based organizations, churches, local churches, social justice organizations, in a WAMKIsh. And you might get subject matter experts who are Western medicine providers, who are facilitators, urban inner city radical healing models, indigenous healers would hold space. These are all subject matter experts, but the real healing comes from within the individual. And that's it. I'm going to turn now to Angela Hill and just ask if, do you have questions for us? But also, can you share with us what the process looks like in your office? Suddenly we hear this thing on Twitter and it's like, whoa, what's happening? And it was pretty exciting, but I think there's a little bit of concern perhaps about how much of what we all shared here with you is known on Capitol Hill. Maybe you could share with us some thoughts.
Yeah, well, thank you again for inviting me and sharing your backgrounds and your stories and letting me listen. I am in a listening stage right now. There's nothing really put to paper. So that's sort of the stage we're in. And to be abundantly clear, there is no plan to create a regulatory framework like Prop 64. This is not what Senator Wiener is planning to do. If anyone's familiar with my boss, I can share he's really, really invested in working in mental health, ending war on drug policies, mass incarceration, and trying to provide people who are in most need with access to good, safe treatment. So it's both his interest in ending kind of the war on drug policies, plus his interest in the therapeutic promises of what he refers to as psychedelics. I know that that's not really a term shared by everyone, but That said, there's a lot of education to be done, not only in the Capitol, but with our office and with, I'm sure, a lot of people across California. So I hope this is the first conversation out of many. I see some people are saying they have to jump off. I have to unfortunately leave as well here pretty shortly. But I do want to share my email in the chat if that's all right for anyone that wants to reach out to me directly. Timeline wise, I can say that the state legislature will allow members to introduce bills starting December 7th. And then in January, we actually return in full force as a legislature. So we imagine that hopefully by February, we have a better idea of what the community really wants beyond decriminalization. Politically, we can't do everything. If this is going to be a first step approach. And again, I really appreciate everyone sharing their perspective and their culture, their histories, and letting me listen. So thank you again, Carlos, for reaching out to our office and having me here tonight.
Thank you. And we do plan on sharing this with you. If you feel compelled to share it with your boss, please feel free. And we hope to speak more with your office in the future.